Hey, what's up, guys? YouTube family. I'm back again. We're going to talk about this Maxx Crosby stuff again. I think it's time to put this Maxx Crosby stuff to bed. I mean, he just came out. He was on his podcast talking the other day, and apparently he had some things to get off his chest, some things to say about the Ravens and everything. Um, so we're going to talk about it. There was an article that came. I'm going to read you what the article said. This was what he said on his podcast. And let's go from there on what he said. So what the article is saying is that Maxx Crosby seemed suspicious of the Ravens before Baltimore shockingly backed out of the trade. Energy was off. That's what he said. The energy was off when he got to Baltimore and stuff. But we all know what the real deal was and everything. At least I believe that was the real deal, of what really happened and stuff. The reason why he backed out of it was because of his knee and everything. But that's besides the point. This is what Maxx Crosby had to say. So he said that during his podcast is called The Rush with Maxx Crosby, and during Tuesday's episode, he gave all the inside details of what transpired while he was visiting the Ravens. And he said at no point did Crosby think the trade was going to be called off, but he definitely seemed suspicious of several things, starting with the fact that Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta didn't meet with him during the first 5 hours he was at Baltimore team facilities. So that is kind of strange that Eric DeCosta didn't meet with him when he first got to the facility, because normally when a big star player come into town or whatever and they want to sign them, or they bring them in for a visit or whatever, so especially if they sign them, then normally everybody is at their front door waiting for that player to get come through. They'll send out a jet or whatever, put them on a private jet and everything like that, and bring them in, send a limousine out to bring them to the facilities, the Under Armour Performance Center, where they practice at, and there, the where Eric DeCosta and everybody, all the coaches and everything, be at. So that is kind of strange. But anyway, he further go on to say he didn't get to see general manager at all. And then he said, I thought I was going to see him when I first got there. I didn't see him for 5 hours. I don't know why. I'm not going to speculate. I didn't see him one time. I even asked the girl, somebody who worked there, I was like, where's Eric DeCosta at? You know what I mean. He just made the trade. I didn't see him for 5 hours. Wow, 5 hours? I wonder what Eric DeCosta was doing at that time. Uh, was he on the phone making other transactions or whatever? Let's speculate there. Was he making uh, deals, try to get other players in, or what the reason why he wasn't down there? I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt right now. Anyway, and then Crosby said during the first few hours where he didn't get to see DeCosta, Crosby was doing medical tests. Ravens looked at his labrum, knee, and ankles to make sure everything was working. The process involved an MRI and several scans. He said, so I'm doing all these scans. They took forever, Crosby said. They took a really long time. This is the thing, bro. Everyone got their own theory, conspiracy theory. No one really will ever admit either side what the real truth is or whatever. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Wow. Then he said, after the test was done, he wanted to meet with new Ravens head coach Jesse Minter. And that's where things apparently got even more awkward. Crosby, this is Crosby. Crosby did eventually meet with him, but he said the energy was off a bit. He said that it wasn't even no energy when he met mentor. Said like something was off and everything. So he was wondering what was going on. He said that he dapped him up, and I could just tell the energy was a little bit off, and the GM was standing in the hall. So Eric DeCosta was standing in the hall when he met Mentor and stuff. He said the room next to me to the right. He said, and that was the first time I had seen him. In my head, this is a whirlwind. I'm so excited, like fired up. You know what I mean. This is a new opportunity, and you could just tell the energy was off. I dapped him up. He had a blank face. He was talking about Eric DeCosta at that time. Said Eric DeCosta had a blank face, like something was going on. He said he finally got to meet DeCosta. That's when the Ravens general manager delivered some bad news. I go into the room. They set me down on the couch, and he like, man, I don't know how to say this, but one of our doctors had concerns with the results or whatever with your knee. Then that's when Max said, some of them are concerned about the future. Da 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 da. We really want you, and this is what it is. But we're just gonna have to get more and more opinions. So at that time, the Costa told Maxx Crosby that they need to get more and more opinions and stuff like that. I guess so they reached out to some other doctors or whatever to see if they could look at the MRIs that they just took, look it over to see whether or not, um, if his knee was gonna be okay or wasn't it gonna be okay, for I guess down the line and stuff like that. So he said, and then he said, at that point, he officially started panicking and he thought something might be wrong with his surgical repaired left knee. You know, he said the first thought in his head, I was terrified because I'm thinking in my head, what the F, Crosby said. I'm not gonna cuss on here. I just had he had his doctor, the best effing surgeon in the country, like the best of the best. He's done all my surgeries for the most part. That's my guy. Wow. He's key point here. He's done all of my surgeries. So let's let you know right now, he has had several surgeries on that knee or some parts of his body. And this doctor who he just stated did the surgery. Somebody named Neil, did his surgery. Remember, I told you that apparently I think he had like 7 other surgeries. This would have made the 8th one. So key fact, there's several other surgeries. Then Crosby initially thought was that he might have to get another surgery. And if that had been the case, then he wouldn't be ready for the 2026 season. He then said, it just kind of hit me. I'm like, what the F? He liked to cuss. Is there something wrong? Like, I'm freaking out. He said, like low key and deep down, I'm like, I can't get another surgery. My timeline, this is effed up. So I'm effing like, what is going on, bro? Then he said, eventually, he talked to the surgeon who repaired his torn meniscus. And at that point, the Raiders star felt better about the situation. So he talked to the person who did the surgery on him. He called him up and talked to him. So the surgeon, that Neil person, the doctor, he called him back and he calmed him way down. Crosby said, he like, Max, don't listen to any of that shit. He's like, your knee is great. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, or even ahead of schedule. He's like, you're doing everything right. They know you had your surgery 9 weeks ago. And then said, with his surgeon giving him some reassurance, he didn't have any reason to think the trade was going to be called off. But then he called his agent, CJ LeBoy, who gave him some wild news. Now, let's go back to the surgeon. Of course, the surgeon is going to say everything is okay because he don't want to look bad. You know what I mean? He's the one who performed the surgery on him and stuff. So if I did surgery on you, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear and stuff. I'm not going to feed you any bad news and say, well, no, I mess your knee. I mean, your knee is not where it's supposed to be because I don't want to look bad. I'm gonna be like, oh man, your knee is gonna heal 100% or whatever and stuff like that because I don't want I don't want to look bad when some other doctor is gonna come out here and say, oh no, that knee is not good and stuff, you know. So sure, he's gonna give him some reassurances to say that his knee is good and stuff, you know. So then his agent called back, you know, and said, you know, and told Max, he said, and it's crazy because that guy called me, one of the Ravens guys called me, and he's like, yo, we're trying to figure this stuff out. You know, we're going to get this done. Don't worry. 5 minutes later, CJ called me. He like, they backing out. I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like frozen. I'm like, what the F? I'm so confused. The whole nine, all in one. The Raiders thought that they were getting 2 first-round picks for Crosby, but with the trade now off, the Ravens were instead getting Crosby back. All this SHIT unraveled on Tuesday, and then all of a sudden, I'm back, flying back the next day. Never would have thought in a million years, Maxx Crosby said, you know. But his agent called him up and told him that the deal was off and everything while he was still at the facilities and stuff, the Ravens facilities and everything, you know, which is wild. But I'm saying but again because, you know, I have a feeling that the agent, Maxx Crosby, and the Raiders knew all this before they even started to make the trade and everything about that knee and how bad it was, you know. So then it says, you know, talking about Maxx Crosby, he spent the entire 7-year career with the Raiders, and although he demanded a trade earlier this season, he now seems content with the idea of being in Vegas for the long term. Wonder why? You know, because at this point, nobody else is picking up the phone to call him after finding out this news and everything. Yes, every team had their own doctors and everything, you know. After this fell through, the Raiders reached back out to Dallas, who was going to give up a first and a second rounder for him. And Dallas said, oh, no, we don't want him now. You know what I mean? Because one of the doctors who said that Maxx Crosby's knee wasn't good, or, you know, and it kind of like seemed like his knee is going to start to deteriorate in over a couple years and stuff, you know. He might be good for this year, but next year he may not be good, or he could be good for this year. He could be good for next year, but the year after that, he may not be good. You got to look into the future for him. The Ravens was giving up 2 first rounders this year and next year's and everything, and thinking that they was going to have him for 4 years. If you only get him for 1 year to be able to play this year, and then next year he can't play because of that knee, then you out of a first rounder for next year. You know what I mean? So you're looking into the future and stuff. So then it says, I wasn't supposed to be in Baltimore, and that's it. I'm meant to be a Raider. It's through my damn core, Crosby said. You know? So then it said, on the Ravens end, DeCosta was asked about the trade last week and didn't have much to say about it. Why it was called off, and then the fact that it was a medical issue. So Eric DeCosta really didn't go into it. He just said it was a medical issue and stuff like that. You know, anybody ever heard of HIPAA or whatever, stuff like that? You know, you're not going to really give all the details out about somebody's medical condition. You're just going to say it's a medical condition and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So then it says, one of the key things is you bring a player in and try to get as much information as you can. This is Eric DeCosta saying this. We were not able to complete the process of trading for the player based on our assessment of the situation, and they did an assessment of the player. What's they supposed to do? Any player that's coming on the team or whatever have to take a physical. You have to take a physical to be able to pass a physical. And the Ravens have one of the toughest physicals that you could take. They failed their own players who played for them and had to come back that was still under contract. It failed them. You know what I mean? Until you could pass that physical, you out. You know what I mean? So yes, you have to take a physical. And then it says, with Carsey now back with the Raiders, he'll be joining a totally revamped Raiders defense that now includes players like the Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, and Quitty Pay. On paper, the Raiders defense study looked like it could do some damage. Huh. You're right. You see what I'm saying? On paper. They haven't touched that field yet. It's on paper. Plus, you talking about the Raiders too, you know. Then it says, Crosby been one of the most dangerous players in the NFL over the past 7 years. And after getting snubbed by the Ravens, wow, why they say snubbed? He seemed more motivated than ever to terrorize opposing offenses. So getting back to all this and stuff, my thing is that I believe that that the Raiders, knew all this stuff that was going on, and they just wanted to get Crosby out there, get the 2 first rounds. He's a great player, and I would have loved to have him on the team and stuff like that, alongside with Trey Henderson. And let's just back up a little bit. I had my own theory about what might have happened or transpired. Once they sent him for that MRI or whatever and stuff like that, and found out that his knee probably wasn't gonna hold up for another couple years or whatever. They probably went upstairs, Eric DeCosta, because he said he never met Eric DeCosta for 5 hours. Eric DeCosta probably was upstairs in his office on the phone with Trey Henderson's agent, and Trey Henderson making a deal to try to bring him here and stuff. Now remember, Eric DeCosta said that he wanted both of them, Crosby and Trey Henderson, to pair both of them up. And that was one of the things that he said that he sold to Trey Henderson. You'll be playing with Maxx Crosby. And Trey Henderson was fired up about that. Trey Henderson even said that he was told that he will be playing with Maxx Crosby. But because of that knee and everything that happened, I'm not going to knock the Ravens for doing what they did, and everything, because you have a lot of people out here saying that they backed out of because they didn't want to give up the 2 first round picks or whatever and stuff. 2 first round picks is big, guys. First of all, for a player like Maxx Crosby, who is healthy, absolutely I would do it. I'll do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. But if he's not healthy, absolutely not. And people shouldn't be mad about this, this deal or whatever. I guess the Raiders gonna be mad because they got to take Maxx Crosby back and everything. And plus they out of 2 first round picks and stuff. Another thing is that you're looking at another team, Dallas, who wanted Maxx Crosby, but now they saying, not don't want him. And you don't have nobody picking up the phone right now calling around for him and stuff, saying, what will it take for us to get Maxx Crosby on our team and stuff. The Raiders say they're gonna keep him. I mean, I just saw something today where as though they said that that they reworked his deal, where as though he would get a fully guaranteed contract, but that's for next year, 2027, which he was gonna get that anyway. If he stayed with the Raiders. But now he's back with the Raiders, so they're going to go ahead and honor it. Now, anything could happen. Anything definitely could happen over the next several weeks or whatever and stuff like that. You got the draft coming up next month, and then you got to worry about June 1st and all that stuff, where I think the trade deadline or whatever and stuff like that. Anything could happen. They still could trade him. Do I think he's going to get traded? No. I don't think nobody's gonna pick him up. And if they do, they only gonna have they probably gonna be like, okay, we only gonna do him for a 1 year deal or whatever, stuff like that. Or they're not gonna give up a first round. I don't even think they give up a second round for him and stuff, But he seemed content to be back in the Raiders, and I don't believe that he really wanted to lead the Raiders anyway. I don't, because if you look at his podcast or whatever, he was praising them. He was saying everything like he really was sad to leave. He said that he was happy that he was coming to the Ravens and stuff like that. But on the other hand, he was sad to leave. He said he's live in Vegas, and he said he'll be a Raider for life and stuff, which is fine and stuff. But we need to put this to bed, guys. We need to put it to bed. It's over with now. I mean, what happened happened. We need to move forward. The Raiders need to move forward. The Ravens need to move forward. Look into the future. Look for the draft to come up and stuff. In all this. I don't knock anybody. I'm not gonna bad about the Raiders, who probably knew what the deal was. His agent, who probably knew what the deal was. Maxx Crosby, who knew what the deal was and stuff. I'm not gonna fault the Ravens for backing out of this deal and stuff like that, because at the bottom line, it's a business. It's a business, and there's a lot of cutthroat, when it come down to business and stuff. I will say this again. I think the Ravens could have showed him a better hospitality by sending the private jet out to him, because they brought him here, flew him on commercial and gave him first class and stuff. It was first class on a commercial plane. Then they brought him to the facility. They didn't even send a limousine. I believe they didn't send a limousine to him. But when he came to the facility, nobody was there to greet him like Eric DeCosta or mentor. I believe it was I believe it was I believe it was some of the coaches, some of the assistant coaches who met him and stuff at the door or whatever, but none of the other coaches. They did not send him straight to the MRI center. They brought him to the Under Armour Performance Center. And then they took him out to go get the MRI. Matter of fact, they brought him in the day before, and he stayed in a hotel. And then he came to the Under Armour Performance Center the next day. And that's when he went through everything and then found out that, the deal was off and everything like that. But guys, what do you guys think? Do y'all think that I'm right with the way that I feel? Or what's your opinion and stuff, on the whole Maxx Crosby deal? And then we're going to put this to rest. Put it in the comments below and stuff like that. Because I would love to read what you have to say and stuff, There will be no bit of harm, no, I'm not gonna get mad, you're not gonna get mad and stuff like that. Just put in the comments of what you think about this whole deal that went down and stuff like that. Like I said, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear what you have to say and stuff like that. But until next time, I hope we put this Maxx Crosby stuff behind us, because we have some other stuff that we want to talk about Lamar, about Matter BK, and then the upcoming draft and all that stuff. But until next time, I just want to say, please subscribe, please like, please comment, give that thumbs up. Until next time, peace.